Welcome to another episode of Arbitration Life. I'm Hana Doumal.
And I am Janette, Brin. Before we go any further, I have to remind everyone to please subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, Facebook,
Yes.
Arbitration Life.
So doing this show has been so exciting during the last few weeks, and it's been so busy since I joined the center at the end of January, on top of managing the cases, working on so many new initiatives, and just filming the show with Janette. Also adding that I had to settle in the BVI in the middle of a pandemic. So it was quite interesting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel all settled in right now, and I'm very happy and so grateful that I got this opportunity to work with such a wonderful team here.
Awesome. Well, I know we probably would need a totally separate show to discuss the issue of, or the challenge rather, of moving from one part of the globe to the next part of the globe during a pandemic.
Yes, definitely. That would be a good subject.
But I recognize it's truly an amazing opportunity to have this opportunity to work in the BVI in your field.
Yes.
You know, something on the resume, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, out of all of that, what would you say is your biggest challenge?
I think for me, and it's probably for everyone, it's the fact of moving and living far away from home, which is for me between France and Morocco.
Yes.
It's just to be far from the family and from my family, from my friends. I miss them a lot, of course, I communicate with them all the time, but it's not the same. And at the same time, they're happy when they can come visit me. So.
Of course. And we're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Okay, but enough about me.
Okay. Today, we have an awesome guest. She's a dual qualified UK solicitor-advocate and US litigation attorney. She focuses on English and international litigation and arbitration, as well as regulatory investigations. She's no stranger to the BVI International Arbitration Center, having been a speaker at least 2 of our industry conferences. And of course, without further ado, please welcome yet another queen to our show, Akima Paul-Lambert.
Welcome to the show, Akima, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an incredible honor to be on the show. Thank you, Hana, and thank you, Janette.
Yes, so Akima, I have to reiterate that it's an extreme honor to have you joining us today. I said this to Akima Davis the other day, so I have to also say it to you because I'm absolutely elated to have yet another incredible example of a woman, especially a young Black woman, a young Caribbean woman, so talented. I'm extremely excited to talk to you today. And without further ado, I need to know, Akima, where do you get your career drive and all that makes you you?
It's a good question, but I think it's an easy question because undoubtedly my drive for my career and for my passions comes and stems from the Caribbean. I always like to say I was born in the smallest town in one of the smallest countries in the Caribbean. And it was small, my town was small, but it was mighty. And I stand on the shoulders of a community that was invested in my success and my development. I had aunts who were teachers who poured a lot of their energy and creativity into me. I had a church community that was incredibly strong that I'm part of today. And my countrymen have always been incredibly supportive of everything. And to this day, they keep in touch with me, they keep me grounded, and they gave me that humility, but also that pride in my successes. My success is their success. And I'm incredibly lucky. I'm not the archetypal, law firm partner. I was born to a single parent in a single parent family, but grew up in an extended family. And I think a lot of my drive to succeed just comes because of that. not in spite of that, but because of that, you know, I had to make it for all the sacrifices that my mom, you know, made in order for me to succeed. And now a lot of my drive comes from the fact that I'm a new parent. You know, I want to see the world change for the benefit of my children. So I've found a newfound drive in my new community, which is my London community and my community of my son, my husband, and they make me want to succeed for them.
That's wonderful. So in other questions, we know that you were a Hogan Lovells pro bono fellow, but now you're a partner at Hogan Lovells. So could you please tell us more about this whole experience?
It has been a coming full circle moment. I mean, I joined Hogan Lovells in 2006, and I actually joined after I had done a number of placements at Magic Circle firms, but I joined Hogan Lovells because it was one of the few places I joined and I realized that people there liked coming to work. And coming from the Caribbean, you know, I grew up going to work with my mom. You know, the boundaries between work and, you know, childcare were kind of blurred. We all kind of hung around our parents' jobs after school. And it was always a place of camaraderie and conviviality. And I wanted that, you know, I didn't want a staid, gray environment. And the thing that stuck with me was that the people at Hogan Lovells, they were not gray. You know, they were colorful, they had lives outside of work. That was brilliant. And then when I was introduced to the values of the firm, they had a very strong pro bono offering. And crucially, it was a great place for women. When I joined, the managing partner, she was made managing partner while she was on maternity leave. And the reason I say all this is because in coming back, I realized that the same values are there. So I've done a little world tour of law firms, and I've come back to the values that attracted me to the firm in the same place. You know, it's meritocratic. It's a great place for women to work. There are a number of women in management positions. Almost the entire workforce works flexibly, and that was way before COVID. So it's a great place for women. It's a great place to work as a lawyer. And its commitment to pro bono, which is so important to me. I mean, Hogan Lovells were way in front of the curve on social justice. And I actually went to Ghana as a pro bono fellow to assist the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. So all of these, you know, issues, they've been brought to the fore recently, you know, because of George Floyd and other issues. But, you know, they were doing this a very long time ago. And it's that kept me, you know, coming back. And it's that ethos that has made me do this boomerang.
Wow.
All right, so Akima, I see that you're a dual qualified lawyer practicing English and international litigation and arbitration and regulatory investigations, correct?
Yeah.
Could you briefly explain the benefits and perhaps the types of cases where this has become beneficial?
Well, I like to say, you know, we break things up and subspecialize into different aspects of dispute resolution. You know, you have investigations, you have arbitration, you have litigation. But at the end of the day, all of dispute resolution is problem solving. So every day when I bring my entire self to work, I bring the benefit of all of those sectors that I've worked in and all of the specialities I've worked in. And law is the kind of field where nothing is irrelevant. You know, I might be working, you know, I've worked on an arbitration before involving fresh fruit and some of the issues related to contractual termination. And I've worked on an energy litigation, and again, we encounter contractual termination. So the issues are repeated in the cases. And at times, you would find that some of the precedents that you use in some of the other cases, they come to bear and come to light in the cases that you're working on presently. So I think sometimes the distinctions between the different types of dispute bodies or the different types of sector specialities can be artificial. I see myself as a disputes lawyer. I resolve disputes, and it doesn't matter in which forum I do it in. I can do it in an arbitration, in a litigation, and for example, you take witness statements, you in investigations work. So I think in the future, and I'm looking, these categories are going to become very blurred, and these distinctions are going to become very blurred. And what clients are going to pay for is a skill set. What skills are immediately transferable? What skills has this lawyer got that can be applied to my problem? And if you look at it as a question of problem solving, then, the artificiality of these distinctions, it just becomes immediately apparent.
Absolutely. Can we now ask you, what is the craziest thing that happened to you in the middle of a hearing?
I haven't generally had crazy things happen in the middle of a hearing. I've had unexpected things happen in the middle of a hearing. And, I've been to a hearing once where because of the profile of the individuals, they all came armed with security with, rifles and AK-47s. That was a novel one for me.
It's another level of security.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I did feel, and that's just because of the profile of the characters who were involved in that arbitration. I think, generally as a lawyer, you try to avoid surprises, right? You don't want to be surprised. Good preparation almost always causes, to mitigate well against surprises. So I haven't had that many surprising events. But, surely you can never know what the outcome of a dispute is. I've worked on cases where we were absolutely sure we were going to win and we lost. I've had cases where I'm absolutely sure, very confident that we were going to lose and we won. And that's the beauty of disputes for me. And that's the beauty of, litigating as hard as you can. You just don't know the outcome. The outcome is in the hands of someone else. And all you can do is to try to prepare and present your case in the best way possible. And that's what makes it exciting.
Yes.
So who would you say is an arbitrator that you admire and why?
Oh, that's a difficult question. You'll get me in trouble, Janette, because if I don't mention some people, they become very upset. I'm only joking.
Yeah.
I admire lots of arbitrators. I mean, Funke, I love Funke. I think, as a Black woman, African woman, she is incredibly well known, and she has, developed a strong name in the arbitration circle. Someone I admire a lot, Lucy Greenwood, not only because of her given skills as an arbitrator, but because of her work on environmental matters, and and I think her pioneering work on equality and gender equality as well. So I think I admire her a lot, and I think the work that she's doing now will go a long way towards redressing the balance. And I think that's what I admire in people, not just people who do the day job and that's it, but people who think about how can I improve the business of what I do? How can I leave this sector in a better way than I met it? And that to me is the mark of a real pioneer, and that's what I admire a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's great that you gave the example of 2 female arbitrators, actually. That's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't even.
No, I
Well,
know.
there you see it. You see where my politics lie.
Absolutely.
But you know, they're
You
great.
don't hear that.
They're great male arbitrators as well, I
Of,
have to
of
say. But
course.
yeah, it feels great to highlight, two women. And I think instinctively when I think of, people I admire, and that's why representation is so important, because you want to see yourself. And I guess instinctively I want to see myself in them. And it's easier for me to relate to two women. Not that I'm not inspired, the great Gary Bournes and everyone else, but I am inspired by the two women that I've named.
Yes. Now, I would like to ask you, what do you think are some common misconceptions about arbitration that you would like to expose?
Now, this one is a bugbear of mine, which is a great question. Um, I think arbitration sometimes seems like a mythical club.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of, when I was a junior lawyer, a trainee, you chose to be a litigation lawyer. Everything was known as litigation, by the way. And arbitration was seen as a subset of it. I think there'll be arbitration practitioners will be very cross if I say it's a subset of litigation. So that's no longer the norm. But I think a common misconception is that you have to choose it from the time you're a fetus and, do these masters and these PhDs in international economic law, and then do 50 million internships and, sit with this person and contribute to this person's book. And, you sit in this little club and then you get qualified by one of these institutions and you put all of these things behind your name, CR, whatever it is. And, and while that's, useful, I think I always like to think in terms of the big picture. At the end of the day, I say it again, what are we doing? We're solving problems. And we're solving problems. And if you come from a litigation background, it's not impossible to get your feet wet in arbitration. And I think that's a common misconception, that you choose and you choose for life and that's it. And you can never be an arbitrator because you've done litigation. Some of the best people at the bar, they do both, because at the end of the day, it's a mode of resolving a dispute. And once you have the rules that set out, how you draft your memorials, how you respond, how you draft your style of drafting your witness statements, what the procedural rules are, you can be adept at turning your mind to any single thing. And I think that's a common misconception that I'd like to change. And I think it would help in promoting diversity, because if you feel that you have not ticked all these boxes and therefore it's impossible for you to get your feet wet into arbitration, then it will remain the preserves of, the big city firms, the big names in chambers, and increasingly we'll continue seeing the divide that we're seeing in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of geography.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest misconception. I totally share your point of view.
So I've read that you've advised international companies in proceedings in the English High Court and in the Court of Appeal in respect of following on damages arising out of competition law. So I'm curious to know if you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I had quite a varied practice, and that's one thing I should say. I've been incredibly lucky. I've done, a lot in my relatively long or short career. It depends on who's describing it, right?
Yeah.
And I've done a lot in the competition space, and usually you'd have these European Union decisions. And then a company would say, it's quite interesting. A company would say, well, I've suffered loss because you were involved in cartel activities. So say two businesses were conspiring to fix prices in respect of, let's say plane tickets or a refrigerator part. And it's usually these random things. And what would happen is that a law firm would go to everybody who's been affected by that competition bring a claim. And these were very, very popular about 6 years ago. So I got involved in a lot of that. They were very interesting, and a lot of times it would actually end in settlement. They were almost never tried because the question of liability had already been decided. So all you were really debating was quantum. I would like to see more of that in the Caribbean space. I've read one book on antitrust litigation or antitrust, the concept of suing on antitrust decisions. And I think that's a space that we need to look at increasingly. And it would be interesting to see how that would play out as well post-Brexit, whether there is still a space for cartel damages in the European sphere. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, we shall see, I guess. And just talking about your experience, we know you have 15 years of experience as a lawyer, and you have been working on arbitration matters for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
What do you say has changed in the industry since you started in general as a lawyer and in particular in arbitration?
I would say an increasing specialization. I think before, as I've said, you turn to arbitration or litigation, you had more multi-sector specialists, but now you see an increasing specialization in not just arbitration, but, energy arbitration, or, that person is a, name it, a technology arbitration specialist, or sports arbitration, or construction arbitration specialist. So you see, I think that's the main trend I've seen over the years, that there's an increasing sub-specialization within the arbitration industry. But that doesn't necessarily mean, and as a trend, we saw it in litigation as well. When I qualified as a litigator at Hogan Lovells, we had about 10 litigation groups. There was real estate litigation, technology litigation. There was investment banks disputes litigation, retail banks disputes litigation. But what you now increasingly find is that people are wanting these barriers to come down. And while there'll still be a role for the specialist on some cases, I believe that the variety of life, variety is incredibly important, and it keeps you sharp. As well as providing interest, it keeps you sharp. And increasingly, we'll see, more cross-fertilization in future.
Okay, you're back. Thank you very much, Akima. And to follow up on that in diversity and the fact that the world recently celebrated International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day, by the way.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you. We're still celebrating.
We're still celebrating every day.
International Women's Day.
Right? As you should.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think men could actually contribute to actively promoting gender equality?
I think the onus falls on men to promote it. I think women have been doing the lion's share. Originally, gender equality was thought of as, let's help women. And women took on a lot of the housework, I would say, in promoting gender diversity. And you'd often have what you call women's groups, and we all sat in a little corner and, did women's things to promote women. And I think time has moved on, and those with privilege must learn to share it. And gender diversity, I know you said contribute. I think the role of promoting gender diversity must fall to our men, because they are the ones often in a position where they have the most power in organizations. And the first thing that they must learn to do is to share it. And how would they share it? Mentoring.
Yes.
Yeah, mentoring. I believe in mentoring. I believe when men mentor women. It's a powerful thing because we learn from them. We learn the way in which they inhabit spaces, the way in which they project their power, and we can learn a lot from the world in which they inhabit and the way in which things are done, and not necessarily with a view to copying the ways in which things are done, but we add our own flavor. Women add we have our own way of doing things. But in learning and listening and observing, I think there's a lot that we can reflect on as women, and a lot that we can get out of that relationship. I think in the homes as well, that's when gender diversity takes on its own, because women have traditionally, and during lockdown particularly, they've taken on the bulk of childcare and housework and running the home. And if we're really serious about moving forward in this century and making sure that women get promoted and women are valued, it needs to also start at home. And men need to also take on the burden of homeschooling, of all of the things that women do in the house or around the house. So I think on both fronts, in the workplace and at home, men can actively play a very important part, not just to contributing, but actually to leading on gender diversity.
Yes. 100%. Agree.
Absolutely.
Agree. Especially on the homeschooling stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of mothers out there would say that.
And I think we don't hear that enough. So thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's so important because at night you'd have, the women, trying to squeeze their jobs in after the homeschooling up until 1 a.m., trying to get things done. Because, and it's just a simple conversation sometimes, or laying out the expectation. And then women also shouldn't have to ask, men should be alive to this issue and say, how about we do the homeschooling half and half, or I do it this morning and you do it this afternoon. But all too often, I think the statistics show that throughout the pandemic, it's been a woman's job on top of her day job, and we would never encounter parity if women are working twice as hard.
Absolutely.
So, Akima, I could see why you're not only just a successful lawyer, you're also a wife and a mom, and I'm sure you do an outstanding job of those two jobs as well. So
you have to ask my husband.
I need to ask your husband. What does an ultimate family day look like at your house?
Oh my goodness. So I just had a baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's absolute madness. I'd probably get up at about 5 to 6 a.m. and I feed the baby, and then I get ready to take my son to school, my husband as well. And something that's quite atypical, I think sometimes when you have a woman who's successful, there's sometimes a man playing the support role, but my husband has his own career. He's a GP, so his job is equally as demanding. And I'm on maternity leave now, so the day looks a bit different, but I do have calls and I do have, a bit of partner induction meetings. So I either do some of that, I'm with the baby on my lap. Quite thankfully, my mom has, gladly given up some of her time to assist me. And she will sometimes watch the baby, but then I take my 4-year-old to school. And then I plan everything that I have to do around taking him to school and picking him up. So I would say I get most of my productive time during the day when my baby sleeps. But it is go, 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 On top of all of that, I would do some of the cooking. I enjoy cooking. I have to say, I don't have to do cooking, but I do enjoy it. I find it relaxing. So I do some cooking as well. And then when my son comes home and my husband gets home at 6 o'clock, we have family dinner, and it doesn't look like, don't, I'm not trying to make it look perfect. It's sometimes a baby screaming, my son, like, getting upset because he's having too much broccoli on his plate, so he's complaining. And I'm trying to breastfeed like in the middle of it. So it's not anything that's way laid out in the norm. And I think it's important to say that, because we don't have perfect family setups. No family is perfect. It doesn't always look, it's not always calm and serene. But what I value is that we are together and we make a conscious effort to being together towards the end of the day. So yeah, that's what my day looks like at the moment. It's a bit crazy, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Awesome.
That's great. And thank you for keeping it real, because this is really what we're trying to do in arbitration life.
Yes.
And
well, you have to, because I think young people, they see people, definitions of success, and what is success? It's not perfection. Certainly, it's making sure all the wheels are turning and doing the best that you can do on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And since you live in the UK, and we wanted to ask you about the recent interview of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex with Oprah. We definitely keeping it real. We had to ask because everyone's talking about it.
Everybody's still talking about it
in the UK. Yeah.
It's a mix, actually. I think, like everywhere, I think there's a divide in public opinion. I have strong sympathies with Meghan, just because as a Black woman, I found what she had to say, particularly on race, colorism, mental health. Quite frankly, I thought it was painful. But, a lot of people have complained that it didn't need to be public. It was a family matter, that, it could have been handled differently. She could have complained differently. And, there's a part of me that, sometimes when you're the victim, there never is a right way to complain. And we're not in their shoes. So we don't know if they had in fact complained privately and they felt compelled to have this interview. So opinions are mixed. And I think everybody is looking now to the palace to see how this is handled. I think the way in which this is handled will tell a lot about the institution. And, as I said, we're not all perfect. No. And I think to the extent, and based on the statement that was released yesterday, the extent to which it is resolved and how it is seen to be resolved will be incredibly important, not just for, sympathizers of Meghan, but for Black people, for people with mental health issues, and for the world. I think this is something that the world is looking on at. And also for the Caribbean as a colony, a former colony, and head of the Commonwealth. Everybody wants reassurance that, diversity, inclusion is not a trope. It's actually real and living. And we will be, I know there's a lot of interest now in the Caribbean. So this interview, I think it wasn't just an interview. It probably has some political ramifications as well. And everybody is acutely looking on to see what the next step is.
I guess we all will be staying tuned to that one.
Yes. Yeah. And now the bonus question.
Yes. Akima, we have a bonus question for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Because we really, absolutely, without a doubt, need to know what team are you on? How to Get Away with Murder or Suits?
Suits.
Because and we just talked about Meghan Markle. So
So funny,
I have to, not just because of Meghan Markle, but just because, of the the topic and everything else.
Yes, no, definitely.
Yeah, well, both shows are great, obviously.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Suits? What do you love about Suits?
Well, I love a good drama. I watched I think maybe it's what I didn't like really about How to Get Away with Murder, more than, loving Suits. I watched, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of How to Get Away with Murder, but, anything that is gruesome, I'm not a big fan of. I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat. So I much prefer, something that's fast moving and fast paced.
Yeah, no, we see. Well, you're talking to 2 absolute fans of How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
So.
No,
I
well, I'm
like
sorry
them
to
both.
disappoint
I
you,
like
Janette
both.
and Hana.
Sorry?
Sorry to disappoint you.
No, you
No,
didn't.
no.
You actually didn't. It's just like we hear the criticism that sometimes it looks fake, but we just love our legal TV shows.
Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
interesting to see, just to take a look at the different type of legal shows
Yeah.
that are out there.
And how
Yeah.
representative it is, and then
Mhm.
even on the issue of diversity we were presenting earlier. So no,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And how, I have to ask, did you say, was it a baby girl or baby boy?
Baby girl.
Baby
wow.
girl. Oh.
Yes, I already have a boy, so I have a boy and a
So
girl.
you're even.
Exactly.
I'm even.
That's great.
Well, congratulations again on both your new addition to your beautiful family and, of course, your new career at Hogan Lovells.
And this is particularly impressive because you're telling us you're on maternity leave, joining this new firm you've been working on before, and also taking the time to chat with us today. So thank you so
No
much.
problem. It's my pleasure. And anything I can do to support the center, that would be great.
Thank you. And we're looking forward to collaborating with you.
And having you in BVI.
Yes.
Yes. Of course. Thank you both.
All right.
Thank you so
Take
much,
care.
Akima.
All right. Bye.
Bye. It was so great to learn more about Akima's wonderful experience.
Indeed.
Thank you guys for joining us today at Arbitration Life. And for more Arbitration Life,
be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and, of course, follow us on all our social media channels at Arbitration Life.
Arbitration Life is sponsored by the British Virgin Islands International Arbitration Centre, meeting the rapidly evolving dispute resolution needs of arbitration users worldwide. The BVI IAC is a neutral, impartial, efficient, and reliable dispute resolution institution and conference center located in the Caribbean, Latin America, and at the crossroads of the Americas. For more information, visit bviiac.org.